I think you understand that any transfer of military equipment to Ukraine does not happen spontaneously. That is, I believe, on May 29th, the Swedish General Staff did not just take a list of weapons that are on the balance sheet, and among the corvettes of the Visby type, the Meller-AWACS and the DLO aircraft, decided to transfer to Kiev precisely the long-range radar detection aircraft, well, just so that they were. Naturally, this is a well-developed strategy to increase the capabilities of the AFU air forces. And of course, the decision to transfer to Saab 340 aircraft with the ASK 890 radar complex was made quite a long time ago. How long ago it will be possible to understand by who will work for Saab 340 a double bio. If they are Ukrainians, then it means that such an idea matured at least last year. And if the tasks of monitoring the aggressor's airspace will be performed by foreign specialists, then the decision was made. Maybe not last year. The Air Force exercises will be held in Germany from the 12th to the 23rd of June. Finland, as a new member of NATO, and Sweden, which is completing the procedure for joining the alliance, will take part in them. In fact, Sweden has been participating in NATO exercises for a long time. For example, in the 2021 year, during the STAPS Defender, the Saab 340 AW aircraft also participated in the air component. As you understand, the most important element of the exercise is the development of a unified management system, which makes it possible to improve coordination and interaction between the forces of different countries. What does this mean? As an example, Link 16 data exchange equipment is installed on a Swedish AWACS aircraft. It is a communication and navigation system that supports data exchange between tactical command, aircraft, ships, and ground units. Simply put, a huge unified network. As you understand, both the Patriot air defense system and the HIMARS and various Western radars and the South Caesar and the howitzer shell, and in the 16th, which Ukraine will receive, support integration with the Link 16 system. This means that, for example, the Patriot SAM radar can, being in close proximity to the front, work in passive mode, that is, not emit radio waves so that the complex is not detected. Instead, a Swedish aircraft will work, which, simply due to the altitude of the flight, can act as a radar, and not be in the enemy air defense zone. Having found a Russian plane and taken it to escort, Saab 340 Air W will give the Patriot the coordinates of the target, at which an anti-aircraft guided missile will be instantly fired. Approximately the same principle works with other systems. The AWACS is capable of detecting, for example, the work of enemy RSOs, and instantly issuing target designation through Link 16 to the same HIMARS or Caesar, or, of course, F-16th, which will also perform some combat tasks, not including airborne radars. Russia has also developed analogs of Link 16, for example, a SUFK. But the occupiers have not yet managed to fully integrate its troops. We actually have no OSU, the Military Ministry of Defense. Yesutke, she was dead initially. That is, well, initially there was an absolutely sawing project, where criminal cases that you can just stack up here. There were criminal cases, but those who raised a problematic image. There will be criminal cases now. I hope so very much. Friends, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel, and also share this video with your friend. Here, do it just now, throw it to a friend. This will greatly help you in the distribution of content. Thank you in advance. Back to the topic. Please understand me correctly. This does not mean that smart systems will do everything for the Ukrainian soldier now. Of course not. The task is different, the maximum reduction of the combat control cycle. And the Derlo plane will play a key role here. Saab 340 AW is capable of performing tasks in the conditions of enemy jamming, thanks to the ARI radar with an active phased array antenna. By the way, yes, it is not necessary to perceive the small size of the radar canvas installed on a Swedish aircraft as a disadvantage. Despite the much larger size of the radar of the same A50th, it is worth clarifying that the Russian radar has a passive phased array antenna, which makes it less effective in conditions of intense electronic countermeasures. And now, as you know, this is extremely important. Actually, the Saab 340 AW even has a slightly longer target detection range than the A50th. 450 kilometers against 400. Of course, the static radar of the Saab has one drawback over the rotating radar of the A-50. This is the need to adjust the aircraft to get the desired viewing angle. And yes, the dimensions also affect the time the AWACS aircraft is in the air. If the A50th can only patrol for 4 hours without refueling, then the Saab can fly all 9. It would help 2 years to change the situation. There is also about the work of turning the territory. On the territory and us with simple systems for detecting ground-based system defense, then I will also scout. and allow us to simply from the surface and give tele-indications thereby. But not everything is so rosy. In the video about the Ukrainian bipoles, we calculated that Russia does not have enough air defense systems to shoot down small-sized targets made of composite materials. And we were 100% right. But in the same video, I argued that Russia's problem is that its air defense system was built for much bigger challenges than small drones. That is, only now can the Russian air defense realize its full potential because the S-400 systems are capable of shooting down targets at a distance of 400 kilometers with the help of 40 N-60 missiles. This is in ideal conditions when the target is above the radio horizon. That is, it will be extremely dangerous for the Swedish AWACS near the front to gain an altitude ceiling of 7 kilometers. It will have to descend, losing the ability to scan the airspace. After all, the lower the Saab 340 flies, the smaller the area it covers. In other words, it will be a constant competition for dominance in the sky. I mean, in fact, there have never been such wars in the entire history of mankind, in which states with such complex systems in service would have clashed. And, to be honest, it is not at all clear how they will work in opposition to each other. But, as we noted in the last video, judging by the fact that the APU systematically disable the girls, the S-400, S-300, shoot down the 50th, then if this practice continues or even scales, the sky for a bunch of Saab 340 plus F-16 will become more free. We must take this matter seriously because, well, there is an accumulation of a certain critical mass. In terms of the supply of weapons and military equipment to Ukraine, sooner or later a chain reaction may begin, when the weapons will be quite sufficient to solve such large operational and strategic tasks. I didn't just say that about a bunch of F-16 and Saab 340. Judging by the investigations of a Sinter, Ukraine will receive F-16 upgraded according to MLU standards, which brought them to the level of F-16 Block 5052. Radars on these models are capable of detecting a target at a distance of 110 kilometers and capturing a target even less. The Su-35 with the Airspace radar is able to detect a target at a distance of 400 kilometers. That is, objectively, the American fighters of the 2000th years are inferior to modern Russian ones. And it is important to be prepared for the fact that the air battle will not be in favor of the Ukrainians. After all, in order to defeat the target in the 16th, it is necessary not only to detect the enemy aircraft, but also to maintain its illumination until the missile homing head captures it. And this, taking into account the fact that Russian fighters will notice the American plane much earlier, is simply suicide. After all, while the onboard rules for the 16th will drive the rocket into a square with the invader's fighter, and on the 16th, it will be forced to approach the enemy aircraft, and this is very dangerous. In other words, we would hardly have seen such air battles between Russian and Ukrainian aviation. In particular, it would be possible to forget about driving away the Su-34th launching Kabas, because the Su-34th always perform combat missions with the support of the Su-35th. But now Ukraine will have a Saab 340, which will replace the imperfect radar of the F-16 with its radar. That is, in this bundle, the American fighter will simply perform the role of a rocket carrier platform, on the principle of shot and forgot, while the Swedish Durlo will perform the role of a illumination station, capture and tracking the target. A Business Insider, after analyzing the AFU video, came to the conclusion that the Ukrainians adopted the tactics of the US Air Force during the Vietnam War. It assumes that pilots allow enemy air defense radars to detect themselves and then strike with HIMARS harm missiles. These missiles fly for 150 kilometers, and they are launched using iPad tablets, because otherwise it would be impossible to integrate an American missile on Soviet fighters. Of course, such crutches do not make it possible to unleash the full potential of the rocket, since, once again, the illumination of the target is necessary to guide any missile. That is, in the presence of the F-16 with more powerful onboard radars and the Swedish AWACS as a long-range detection aircraft, it will turn out, while maintaining the tactics already worked out, to maximize the potential of Western weapons. And this is another plus from the transfer of Swedish AWACS aircraft. The other moment of Harma drove the rockets in the store fully through the overgrowth, and after all, a visible result. What does air defense mean? It means that it can HIMARS, it can be about a drone, and high. This means that we are dropping logistics, dropping out, dropping priority goals. This means that the line of the LZV line, and it is possible to try to advance in Piviha Ishim. I will not get tired of repeating that we, friends, are trying to talk about trends in our videos. In the video before last, we discussed what opportunities Ukraine will have if the Sapson missile defense system appears in service. The shut-up ones made a lot of fun of the promising complex, but a couple of days later, some of the democratic capitals approved the APU strikes on the territory of Russia with Western weapons. And then it turned out that the Ukrainian Neptune was used for the first time on the territory of the Russian Federation, striking an oil terminal in the port of Kavkaz. So maybe not a Peregrine Falcon, but Neptune, what's the difference? While I was writing the previous video, which we discussed the APU strikes on Russian overseas radar stations, news came about the transfer of one of the AWACS aircraft to Sweden. In other words, it became obvious that I needed to make videos more often. I'm kidding. The strategy of Ukraine began to take shape. Its main goal is to prevent Russia from dominating the skies. I would like to emphasize once again, of course, Russia retains an advantage in all types of weapons. An absolute advantage in long-range weapons. All I'm trying to say in my videos, I'm honestly going to voice it for the last time, is that Ukraine, with the right geopolitical background, can have more and more new opportunities. In Russia, at best, they remain at the same level, and in some positions they are reduced. Ukraine has already brought out at least 4 Sky family radars, the cost of which, according to experts, is about $100 million. There is only one conclusion to be drawn from this. It sounds like this: everyone who supports the war against Ukraine is a moron.
Well, before your mood, maybe there was something else in the country, right? Have you noticed how the mood has changed in the country over these 2 years? It's easier to breathe, isn't it?
Yeah, the fuckers. And what to call those who rejoice in the capture of the village of Lukansk, while not noticing how their nuclear power is losing hundreds of important systems in Ukraine, which they will never restore. Because the component base of such complex systems is completely Western. In other words, the loss of one Sky-M is not only the loss of tens of millions of dollars. It is also a loss of combat capability for years. But Russia is going to go to the English Channel. But on the way, this Ukraine has arisen, which now also in the 16th will have a Derlo. Here are the failures. A massive Russian electronic strike is being carried out. All means of electronic suppression of the Western Military District of the Baltic Fleet are included. NATO radars are going blind, they don't see anything. At this time, Russian military transport planes are landing on the territory of the Swedish island of Gotland, which delivered S-400 anti-aircraft missile systems and Bastion coastal anti-ship missile systems there at the same time. They are deployed there. At this time, no one sees or knows anything yet. The West is wondering why we can't see what's wrong with our radars. Simultaneously, Suvalkovsky Corridor, here it is. Here it is, beautiful, yes. The Kaliningrad grouping of the Russian army and the Belarusian armed forces are blocking the Suvalkovsky Corridor, connecting and isolating NATO and Poland from the Baltic countries. At the same time, polite people suddenly appear in Tallinn, Riga, and Vilnius, who are joyfully welcomed by the local population. Which does not welcome, it just hid and closed in apartments. Simultaneously,